Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer, the podcast that discusses the interplay between balance, success, and adversity for high-performance athletes. Anthony Ogogo was our first non-basketball playing guest this season, and his episode was remarkable. He's got a crazy story from childhood all the way up into where he is now as a new father. He's a boxer and an AEW wrestler, but most importantly, a remarkable and candid human being. Sam, what were some of your takeaways from the episode?
What a great story. He's an inspiration. I really cannot wait for our people to hear his story. I mean, phenomenal story.
Before we get into it, Sam, though, tell them what they got to do.
You know what you got to do. Make sure you like our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all the podcast channels. Let's go, baby.
Episode 4 is live now. Anthony Ogogo, welcome to the show. Your story is nothing short of remarkable. Extremely fierce in the ring, but very, very friendly outside of it. We're very excited to have you on Beyond the Buzzer today.
For the show, my man. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, honor, privilege to be here. Telling my story with you guys today. So thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited.
Anthony, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for you. You know, you were about to go on vacation. You then got called to wrestle at Wembley. And now your partner's given birth last week. It's a first-time father. Why don't you walk us through some of the feelings you're thinking about right now?
Wow, it's been crazy. This last few weeks has been my life. Like I always say when I talk to people, I'm telling about my story. This is my life. Like the chaos of it, the this, the that, the ups and downs, the twists, the turns. That's been pretty much my boxing career, my wrestling career, my life as an entrepreneur. So many setbacks, so many uphill battles to climb over. That's where it's always been. So it's silly to think that this chapter, like becoming a father, would be any different. But it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's I wouldn't want it any other way. But like you said, really super quickly, our baby came 6 weeks early. She was due mid-October. And after a routine OB appointment last Thursday, the doctor said, listen, you've got to go to the hospital right away because this baby's coming. And I was like, goodness me, what? It couldn't have been any more of a juxtaposition of feeling relaxed, chilled out, happy. You know, I've got weeks to go. To now, baby. You know, he actually said like go to hospital now because if it's not delivered now, there won't be a baby to deliver, which was really frightening, actually, terrifying. Went to hospital. My partner did amazing. A 12-hour labour. She absolutely killed it. I'm so proud of her. I think so much of her anyway. And I love women. I was raised by my mum and 4 sisters, so we might talk about that later. But seeing what they go through during labour, my mum did 5 times. Goodness me, admiration is through the roof. So
as soon as I saw my sisters give birth, honestly, I went to my parents and I apologized for everything that I'd ever done to them because I realized how essentially completely still you are as a newborn and how your parents literally are taking care of a piece of meat, and that made me realize and appreciate so much the sacrifice our parents make for us.
Yeah, exactly, and it's huge. It's just it's massive. And my mum, she's like, you know, she's my hero, and I'll talk about it later, I'm sure.
We have a whole section about her.
Thank you, and that bond is, you know, I mean, like it's just like you said, it's even more respect for my mum, for my sisters, for my partner, for what they go through. And my partner, she's an actress. She's an actress and she's a model. And she's I knew she'd be a great mum because that's why I chose to be with her. She's an amazing person, very kind, very giving, very loving. But being from from that entertainment world where, you know, it is a lot about her looks. She's a very attractive woman, model, Instagram, model, actress. And I was a little bit I didn't think she was going to take to it as good as she did, you know, because a lot of her life is about herself, and it's got to be. For example, she'll wake up in the morning and she'll do a 30-minute routine for her face and stuff. And I wondered, is she going to have a baby? She can't do that anymore. Like, how's she going to feel? She's going to be a bit, you know, it's hard be. Like, she's in her, like, mid-20s. If I was in my mid-20s, in the midst of my boxing career, now a baby comes into my life and my whole life changes, I'm sure I felt a certain way about that. You know, I don't know how I would have adapted, you know, with being about me and being now about a child. She's been brilliant. She's just been amazing. She's taken this like a duck to water. I'm so proud of her. And allowing me a few hours off to come and do this and talk to you guys. Yeah, it's been great. So life's been crazy. A lot more crazy, no doubt, but I'm strapped in and ready for the ride.
Good. We're excited to hear about it, and you seem buzzing. Your energy is emanating. So let's go ahead and kick off so we can speak about all these exciting developments in a bit more detail. Anthony, I think I prepped you before. We have a section called the shot clock section. It's going to be a couple minutes of quick fire questions. Think of it as like a warm up. You'll hear some music in the background and we'll get started. You ready?
Fantastic.
All right. Where were you born?
England.
Highlight of your boxing career?
Beating the Ukrainian at the Olympics. It wasn't a medal fight, but it was a fight that nobody gave me a chance of beating, of winning, and I beat him in the most dramatic fight in Olympic Games history. That's a fact, not opinion. That's a fact, and that was the biggest highlight of my boxing career.
Which one of your sisters is your favorite?
Oh, you dirty man! None. I can't. None.
Good answer.
All for own reasons. I mean, like, and different times in my life, I felt closer to each of them, different aspects. But I haven't got a favorite. I mean, even if I haven't. I really haven't. I love them all dearly, very dearly.
What do you eat on match day?
Oh, so when I was a boxer and as a wrestler, it's very different. As a boxer, I'd always try to eat. I had it on my debut, and I boxed fantastically. So I always tried to have it. Risotto, a really plain pasta risotto. What I avoid, and I still avoid to this day, I avoid eggs Benedict. I had it when I boxed in Atlantic City 2014, and it gave me stomach poisoning. I was throwing up both ends, up, down. I was before my fight, after my fight. I was so ill that I ruptured my stomach muscles, the lining of my stomach before the fight. It was so. Even now, I cannot even look at eggs Benedict.
Okay, we'll make sure not to mention it again. What is the best wrestling signature move of all time, in your opinion?
That's a good one. I'm going to say 3 because my favorite is the Tombstone, Undertaker's Tombstone. My favorite, right?
Yeah.
But when you say best, and go from a wrestling subjective, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. What's the best? You can't, because it's not a real sport. You can't really be the best. But the move that everyone back in the 90s got their camera phone, the flash camera phones, and took the picture, the Rock's people elbow. That's a rubbish move. It's an elbow drop. It's so rubbish. Every single person in that arena, 20,000 people would go to that arena to watch that move. And when you can get a move like an elbow drop over, you're the Rock's a legend, man. He's a legend. He made an elbow drop cool. So that and DDP Diamond Cutter.
Ooh, I like that one. Favorite country you fought in?
I fought in. Good question. The Olympic Games in London was the best. It was nothing like it. It was nothing like it, man. The Olympic Games was the best.
Toughest person you've ever had to box? Sorry.
Ivan Krytov, the Ukrainian at the Olympic Games, hard as nails, punch like a horse's kick, technically really good. And another one, Ruslan Chabotarev, a Russian, who was the world #1 that year as well. He was fantastic, really technical, boxing with a broken shoulder. Those two boxers were the best.
Reading books or listening to podcasts?
Reading books.
Favorite non-boxing way to keep in shape?
My fitness app, Ogogo Fitness. My fitness app, 7-minute workouts, 7 minute. But like I was boxing my entire life. My body is damaged and bashed up, and I've got aches and pains and cracks everywhere. I don't do 2-hour sessions anymore. I can't. My body doesn't like it. I'll do short workouts. My app's all about short 7-minute workouts. So my app, 100%.
WWE or AEW?
Trying to get me fired, man. I was trying to get me fired or trying to clip my wings for the future. Listen, AEW is where I chose AEW, and I'm proud to be there. I was one of the originals. AEW is great. We have amazing wrestling. Now, WWE great what they do. They're a massive company. It's entertainment. So both products are unbelievable, and I'm proud to be in the industry.
Sam, let's each ask one more from the shot clock, even though we ran out of time. I'm gonna ask you. When you were a boxer, did you prefer to win by unanimous decision or by knockout?
Oh, by knockout. By knockout. knockout or ref stop contest. Yeah, knockouts are cool, but like I'd like it when the referee used to jump in. I used to like have my guy against the ropes, and I'll be swarming him, bam, bam, uppercut. Sugar Ray Leonard landed some amazing knockout. Muhammad Ali, Leonard, Robinson, my favourite fighters of all time. They weren't one-punch concussive knockout fighters like Mike Tyson or Larry Holmes. They had speed, style, skill, and they'd get back opponent against the ropes and throw leather like you wouldn't believe. And then referee would jump in. They're like, I love them. That just like anyone can throw a knockout
sheer
punch.
domination, isn't it? It's like complete, yeah.
Exactly. Anyone can throw a knockout punch and land a knockout punch. But when you're that good, when you've broken someone down that much and you smash them against the ropes, that is, like you said, just complete domination.
Last one. Better food, UK or the States?
That's not even close to me. UK.
Sam, anything you want to reflect on from that section before we dive into the main part of the interview?
When he spoke a little bit about the WWE business aspect, like entertainment, and the AEW. So you're telling me that AEW is purely wrestling, correct? Educate me on that.
Oh, no, what I mean is, great question, Sam, great question. So this might not translate the way I think it's going to in my head. Let's say Hollywood blockbuster, right? Hollywood blockbuster, big summer picture, big action movie. You have all the explosions. You have all the, the big name actors, the explosions, the this, to that, loads of CGI, right? That's WWE. They have massive production costs. They have fireworks. They have pyro when you walk out. It's entertainment. It's like, they have 100,000 seat stadiums, right? It's huge. AEW, and it's not as cut and dry as this, but this is the analogy, so please bear with me. AEW, we don't have as much pyro. We have pyro. We haven't got as much explosions and stuff. The names aren't as big because WWE is a bigger platform. But in the acting analogy, the storylines are better. The acting is better. It's more real. It's more honest. And we ride off that. We ride off the wrestling and the skills and the stories we tell. Whereas WWE, again, it's an analogy. They'll maybe trade off the explosions and the this and the that, So it's a big summer blockbuster, like an Avengers movie, so to speak, which is they're great. They're really fun. They're great to watch, or a really well done indie film with beautiful storylines, with an amazing story, with a great cast that maybe aren't as big as the Denzels, but they're really good actors themselves. If that makes sense, it's more about the passion rather than the...
Makes perfect sense. And that's something that Sam and I spoke before the episode that we're really excited to get into in more detail, because a lot of people don't understand the balance of storyline versus actual athletic output when it comes to wrestling. But before you were a wrestler, you were a boxer, an Olympic boxer. And even before that, you candidly spoke to me about your childhood in the UK and what you went through. And one of the things I took down when we were speaking for the first time is that you said something. You said, I was always a fighter inside and outside the ring. And one of the things Sam and I have really spoken about, specifically when it comes to our guests that are either boxers or fighters or in the UFC, is understanding that dichotomy of being so able to, hold yourself back in real life, but also have the side of you when, as you mentioned earlier, like when you really start to pummel someone in a fight, like you're going until the ref tells you to stop, right? So talk us through when you, as a young kid, began to channel your energy, leveraging what you went through to sort of apply it towards a structured environment in boxing, and how you became, you rose to be an Olympic boxer for the UK.
Man, well, that's a great question. There's a lot there. My name
There's a lot there, sorry.
No. It's going to be great, and you give me lots of room to play with. And please, if I go off on a tangent, bring me back in. Anthony Ogogo, Anthony Oseswa Ojo Ogogo is my name. The Ojo is one of my middle names. In Nigerian culture, my dad's family is from the Ishan tribe, is if you're born with the umbilical cord wrapped around your neck, you're bestowed Ojo. Because even now, in 2024, when you're born with a cord around your neck, it's really dangerous, especially in Nigeria without the medical facilities we have now. So when I was born, my face was blue and I wasn't breathing. So the Ojo... the translation is baby warrior. So if you survive and you have the cord around your neck, you're called Ojo. So from the first second that I was born, I was always fighting for something. I was fighting to live. I was fighting for that first breath of air. And that's kind of followed me. And I don't know if that has made me a fighter or I became a fighter because of that. I don't know, but I've always fought. And I was raised in a house, mum, 4 sisters, in a small town in the east of England. And our tagline, the town's tagline is, it's the most easterly point in the UK. You can't, any further than that, you're in the ocean. You're in the North Sea. Wow. Beyond that, it's Holland and Belgium, which is a nice little tagline, the most easterly point in the UK. But what that really means is nobody goes there because it's so far away and no one tends to leave. So it's a small town in an unfashionable part of the world. People just mind their own business and go on with their lives. Olympians don't come from there. Like famous actors don't come from there. Legends don't come from that small town because it's so insular. And that's where I was born. That's where I was raised. I wasn't raised in London, in Manchester, Birmingham, big cities with a lot of history and a lot of the road has been walked many times by different people. Wherever that road is, being an actor or a boxer or a footballer, whatever it is, I never had that path, and I had to blaze that trail myself. How I started boxing, we growing up in our household, it was a house full of love, but we struggled.
You told me that your grandfather said that you became the man of your house at 4 years old.
Goodness, yeah. Tingles just hearing that back. My dad wasn't around. My dad was never really in our lives. He was never in our lives. He was. We found out many years later. My dad was. He was a philanderer, shall we say? He had he had priorities not elsewhere. Both in Nigeria and in the UK. And he's married to my mum, had 5 kids with my mum, He met my mum, he came from Nigeria. And my dad, right, he is... I often talk about my dad a lot on not a lot on these podcasts, but when people do the research, like you have done yourselves, and you kind of poke and pry, you ask the right questions and I elaborate. I often find myself talking about my dad. My mum was the real hero of the story. My mum's the real hero in this, so I didn't talk about her as much. But my dad was a wonderful, wonderful man. A wonderful man, articulate, intelligent, charismatic, goodness me, charming. You'd love him. He's not here anymore. A really charismatic, wonderful man. Awful, awful husband, terrible father. So I never saw this man that people hear, that I hear about. But he came to England in the 70s from Nigeria, the oldest of his 9 brothers and sisters, came to the UK. Got loads of amazing records. He's the first African business owner in London, done really, really well, and employed a lot of people, brought a lot of people home from Africa to London, and he was a wonderful man, right? Shit dad, prick of a husband. He was violent towards us, mainly me, being the only boy, and he left one day, and I guess it must have been about 4 years old, and my granddad, we were outside in a tiny little yard. He said to me, "You're the man of the house now. He's not coming back." And I guess he'd come and gone, and we found out years later why he was coming and going. And yeah, and it really took upon me. Like anything in life, you go through adversity, and the things you love, you hold them deeper, and you cling to them more. And our family is so tight, so strong. We'd go to war for any one of us. My sisters, my mum, at the drop of a hat. And yeah, she held us all together. I have no idea how she went through what she went through. I've been a parent for 10 days. It's really hard. She's been a parent for 40 years with 5 kids. It was hard growing up, and we didn't have a lot, but we had a lot of love in the family. And my mum never wanted me playing on the street corners and getting into trouble. She always encouraged me to do stuff, and stuff was always sport. And I was always really good at sport. And I swam, believe it or not. We went swimming. I actually attribute a lot of my success to swimming. What I love about swimming is it's like athletics, like track and field. It's not subjective. If you win, you're the fastest. There's no judges involved. It's just you, and you swim, you look left, look right. You can continuously see where you are. And it's so beautiful in the fact it's just you and your opponents in swimming. And it's like, if you don't win, guess what? You've got to get faster. You've got to train harder. And I learned my work ethic from swimming. Early mornings before
accountability. It's something you and I have spoken about a lot. Is when you're able to hold yourself accountable, then you can't blame anyone else. So it does make sense that when you start with a sport that's so objective, okay, I want to now apply that somewhere else. So what helped you transition from swimming into boxing?
I also played football, soccer in the UK. I was very good at football, and I thought that would be my journey to out of the I don't want to say poverty. It wasn't that, obviously, but we struggled. But it was boxing, and basically, my two best friends had a fight. Every lunchtime at football, every lunchtime at school, we played football. And I went through to the final, and everyone's against each other. And these two playing against each other. And Adam was big, strong, cool. All the girls liked him. He was a cool dude. Aaron was a bit of a geek. He was small, he was scrawny. He used to wear a backwards cap, and he used to play football with his backpack on his shoulders, which was just weird. Adam done some skill, took a shot, the ball flew off Aaron's leg into the top corner, so that was Aaron's goal. So Aaron started celebrating, Adam didn't like it, so Adam storms up to Aaron, and he pushes him over. Boom! Aaron went flying. He had his backpack on his back like a tortoise, and he got up, he went, don't do that again. Adam goes over to him, bosh, shoves him again. The second time, his backpack opened, the zip opened, and the birthday cards flew out onto the floor. He gets up, he takes his straps off his bag, puts his hands up, we'll huddle around, fight. Everyone thought Adam's going to win. Adam's a big, cool dude. Everyone thought Adam's going to win. They do this. Aaron throws unbelievable fast punches. Within 10 seconds, Adam, the big, cool, tough one's on the floor crying his eyes out. Aaron had won. And I went, wow, how'd you learn that? He goes, I go boxing club. I went, fuck. I went, I want to go. He went, there's a beginner one tonight, 6:30. The school bell goes. Aaron's getting like on the shoulder. It was on the shoulder. In my head, for dramatic effect, he's lifting on people's shoulders, walking to me. We just walked into the school. The school bell went. Adam's on the floor. He's crying his eyes, wiping his eyes. I went, Adam, he only won because he goes boxing club. But what we should do, let's get good at boxing, then fight him tomorrow, then you'll win. He went, okay, I'll come. So we went home. I got my bicycle.
Just in that voice? He did it just like that, in that voice?
Just like that. Just like that. He had some snot coming down his nose. He rubbed his ears, okay, I'll come. I picked him up on my bicycle, and I biked down to the gym, and I walked in, and I fell in love. And
wow.
And the reason why I go back to the boxing thing, Adam, he never came again. He went one click, never went. The next day they were friends again. I walked into the boxing gym, and I fell in love. It was a shitty little boxing gym in a shitty little town, in a place where boxing's not big. And I walk in, and the smell, I smelled a smell I never smelled before. I smelled dreams, sweat, blood, pain, success, hopes. The Ali picture on the wall. I had no idea if I'd be good or not. Now, I hoped I would because I was good at sport. I was always good at sport. Any sport I played, I was very good at sport. So I hoped I'd be good. But I had no idea if I was going to be good or not. But with that being said, I knew that's where I was going to be. This is my home now. Boxing, swimming, everything else. Football, swimming, school to a degree. Fell by the wayside. This is me. This was me.
My question to you, Anthony, usually most athletes have somebody that usually discover their talent and tell them, yo, kid, you're special. Who was that person that saw you boxing and told you, I think you can probably do this for a living?
These questions are great. Boxing sung to me in a way that other sports couldn't. Why? Very macho, for the father figures that I never had. So I went boxing for a number of weeks. I say a number of weeks. It was probably 3 training sessions, but in my head it was longer. Gumption, you're going boxing training? I said, yeah, I am. And I said, Mum, I love it. And I thought she was going to say, and I just keep going, because she always wanted me to kind of not be on street corners. She said, you can't go anymore. And she banned me for like a week. So she's banned me from going. I went back and for a few weeks, and I've come back one day, and I just bullshitted. I said, Mum, I went, you won't believe it. You won't believe what the coaches are saying about me. They're saying that if I work hard, I train hard, I'm disciplined, I can be the best boxer from this club ever. And this is, I'm 12. I've been to maybe 10 training sessions. They didn't say that to me. I was just saying to them, I told her that because I thought if I tell her I'm good, she'll let me keep going. And I just believed my own bullshit, basically. And that's what I've always done. I've always believed my own bullshit. And I've never told that.
Let's not call it bullshit. I think there's a little bit of like self-manifestation. There's a little bit of self-belief. And I've read something that a lot of the people that are most successful balance extreme self-belief, but also extreme insecurity. And I believe that you calling it bullshit downplays it, right? You probably said it because you felt something deep inside of you that you knew you could be great at it.
Yeah, I love what you've said, but my retort to that is this. I was 12. I remember when I was 12, I sparred a man called Danny Morse. Danny Morse was a 29-year-old police officer. He went training with spar. He used to batter me. in sparring. He'd beat the shit out of me from corner to corner to corner. I was 12 and I'd always come back. So, and this is an old school. Boxing, I hope, is different now because it was, it was boxing's a dinosaur sport where the coaches do what they did, what their coaches did, and their coaches back from hundreds of years ago. So the training is quite an old school way of the mentality. And I used to get battered in sparring. I'd always come back and spar the men as a boy. Right. Again, I want to spar again. And he said to me, he knew I'd be good then because, yes, I was fit, I was strong, I was fast, I punched hard. But I had that mentality where I didn't mind getting hit and I wanted to get better. So the thing is, Abudi, like I'd go train and spar people, and every sparring session I was losing. Well, you can't really lose a sparring session, but I was getting hit more than I was hitting the person. So I had no idea if I was good. And I'll tell you why this, right? I had no idea I was good. The day when it changed for me, and this is going to sound really, really silly, I became national champion. Nobody from my club, town, region in my country had ever done that. I came twice. Then I got picked to box for GB.
How old are you at this time? Just so we understand the timeline. So, you started at 12. When did you really become?
My first fight, I was 12. I knocked the kid out in the second round. 12-year-olds don't knock people out. My first 3 fights, I knocked them all out, which never happens as a 12, 13-year-old. My first fight was the day before my 13th birthday. And then on my 13th...
Is this normal, though? Can I cut you off? This normal? Is that when usually boxers start fighting at that age, at 12?
Yeah, even younger now. Now they start younger. They do skills bouts.
When they start younger, do they wear the headgear and everything just to protect them at a young age?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So as a kid, you can't really punch hard, You shouldn't be getting punched in the head, but you can't really punch hard as a kid. So it's more, you rarely get hurt. That's why when I knocked someone out in the second round when I was 12-year-old, sent them to the hospital, which I did. Doesn't happen when you're 12, and I knocked out the first 3 people, and it was very hard to get me fights because I was knocking everyone out, which doesn't happen when you're 12 years old. So my debut of boxing as a Friday night, I was 12 years old, the day before my birthday, and knocked the kid out in the second round. On the Saturday, I had a Suffolk match. So Suffolk is my county Suffolk football down in Ipswich, and I went down to Ipswich, and this is when there's 2 moments I'm now going to talk about. I was the captain of my county, really good level of football, soccer. I went down there and we were losing 3-0 at half time. And I came in and Mr. Dunnett, the manager, fucking went off on us. I'm 13, my birthday, went off on us. We weren't playing very well. And I wasn't playing great. 3-0 down at half time. The manager went off on all of us. I wasn't playing very well. And I was the team captain. And I was fucking fuming. I was so pissed off. This man is shouting at me, and I'm trying my best. Uncle Mark. So during the second half, Uncle Mark told him, "Listen, Anthony's he's a boxer. He became national champion last night in Nottingham. Like he's fucking trying really hard." What I'm saying is, the night before I became national champion, I felt like I was the world champ. That day, the next day, I'm getting shouted at by the football manager, who's like his day job was like a geography teacher or whatever at school, and at that moment, I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Like, I'm trying my best. I'm the captain of this team, but I'd rather be the captain myself because I believe, we spoke about before, Budi, is that accountability. I believe in myself. I can back myself. The manager apologised to me after the game, but I stopped playing after that. I stopped playing. I didn't play football anymore. And that's when I kind of focused on boxing. But when I thought I could be good, so fast forward another year, the next year I went to Brownsville, Texas for the Junior Olympics in 2004. Never left England before. I flew to America. I had 3 fights, won all 3 fights. I won the gold medal. I won the most outstanding boxer of the tournament award. I'm now like on top of the world, 15 years old, and it still hadn't hit me. And this is when it hit me. Again, I've never flown before this trip. The GB team, we're flying back from Brownsville to Houston back to London on a British Airways flight. I'm sitting there tired. This whole flying thing is new to me. I'm sitting there, and there's 2 people from the squad won gold medals, me and Luke Campbell. And the captain of the airplane, goes on the intercom, and he says, special congratulations to 2 special travellers today, Luke Campbell and Anthony Ogogo, they won gold medals at the Junior Olympics, and the whole airplane gave us a massive round of applause. And I sat there, I was like, fucking hell, like, this is unbelievable. And at this time...
This is a big deal.
Huge. And at this time, I trained twice a week, because my club was open twice a week. I'd go for runs before school. At lunchtime at school, I'd go and run on the treadmill and do some weights in the school gym. It's a shitty school gym. And I was always pushing myself. And it was that moment where on the plane, I thought, fuck, I train twice a week. I'm the junior Olympic champion. Like, what would happen if I actually do this properly? Now, that, and I thought I could
training
do
every day. You know what I mean? Start doing it correctly, training every day and doing all the right, going through the right channels.
But as a 15-year-old, I didn't know what correctly was. I thought I was doing correctly because, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And all I knew is, like, my gym's open twice a week, so I'm going to be there twice a week. I'm going to be the first person there, I'm going to be the last person to leave. Right. I know if you run around, again, I was 15, I knew nothing about conditioning. I know that if I run on the treadmill, get out of breath, I know that when I box, I punch really hard and fast, I get out of breath. So I think if I go and run on the treadmill as hard and fast as I can, I'm also going to get out of breath. Therefore, that's training me to be a good boxer. Now, yes, in a very, very primitive state, but like if I knew what I was doing, if I knew about nutrition, that's how primitive it was back then. I would just kind of make it up as we go along. But it was, it was on that flight back.
Anthony, my question to you, but when was the rise of Anthony? Like, when was your actual professional fight, your first professional fight? Because do they consider anything under 18 as a professional, or you have to be over the age of 18? How do they do that?
Boxing's an interesting one. So boxing is the least professional sport in the world. It's weird. It's full of cowboys. It's a business. So you mean, and I know what you mean, but it's not pro boxing. We'll come on to pro boxing later. You turn professional. Now you fight with no head guards. You fight with no vest. The top's off. And you fight for money. It's now your profession. Amateur or Olympic boxing, you box for the love of the sport. You box for your country, you box for yourself, your community. Two different things.
Can I interrupt you real quick? So that means if you go professional and start earning money, you cannot go to the Olympics, right? You can't go backwards.
Yes, it's just getting really silly. It's not going backwards, but I know what you mean. But you can't go reverse. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You can't. Just to talk about like. You turn pro, you can't do Olympics anymore. It's a very different sport. In Olympic boxing, you fight for three-minute rounds, so you 9 minutes of competition. Pro boxing in a championship level is 12 3-minute rounds. So it's a very different sport. It's chalk and cheese. It's like I don't know how familiar you are. This is my analogy for those who aren't clued up on boxing. It's like football and rugby, right? So American football and rugby, right? Kind of the same, a totally different sport. You know, although it's performed in the same constraints, it's a very different sport. Now,
so in regards to you, then, when you had that realization on the plane up until you get the call to be an Olympic boxer, how did your career sort of transpire in that period?
I went from junior Olympic champion to junior world champion to this, to that, to this, to that, to this, to that, until 2008. And then 2008, I dislocated my shoulder. I was
at this point, you're 19, correct?
Yep. Yeah. 18, 19. Yeah. 18, 19, 19 that year. I was told by Terry Edwards, who's the chief, he was the performance director of the GB boxing squad, I was injured and I got like a year to get better. And Terry said to me, he called me up one day, just had the surgery. Up until this point, I'd never broken a nail. I'd never bruised a hand. I generally thought I was Superman. This first kind of like adversity I faced really humbled me. I got injured, dislocated my shoulder, 2008. I missed the qualifiers. I missed Beijing Olympics, which my goal was go to Beijing as a 19-year-old. Hopefully, maybe nick a medal, maybe win a medal. But listen, I was going there for experience. Then go to London in 2012, and as 23, more experience as an actual man now, and be one of the favourites for the gold medal. That's what my plan was. And I done my shoulder, winning the national title in 2000 in the semi-final. My shoulder popped out. I was told I was getting taken off the squad for a year because, in Terry's words, I'm no good to him injured. And he said to me, when you're back better, there is a relatively small amount of money. How sport works in the UK setup is for every medal you win at an Olympic Games, you get around about £1 million of funding for the next 4-year Olympic cycle. So it's hard if a sport, and boxing, we weren't great. Like in 2004, we got one Olympic medal. 2000, one Olympic medal. So we got a little bit of money. And that little bit of money I had to cater for the whole squad. Now, 2008, we did quite well. We got 3 medals in 2008. That's £3 million. Now we can have more people on the squad. In 2012, we got 5 medals, and we've done really, really well now, if that makes sense. But back then, we had
So 2010, you're called back on. He took you off for a year, and then he calls you back on in 2010.
He doesn't come back on. I've got to fight my way back on. He got fired. A new guy came on. I called him up. Hey, look, I'm fit again now. He said to me, that wasn't my deal. He said, if you want to get back on the squad, you've got to earn your way back onto the squad. I go back to the British Championships. I win the championships. He has a nervous breakdown and he leaves. A new guy comes on and he likes me. He brings me back on. And I said to him, he called me up on my birthday again. My birthday, 2009. He said to me, I'm bringing you back on the squad on a 3-month trial. I said to him, Rob, I'm going to win a medal at the Olympics in 2012. He went to me, listen to me and train hard, and I'm sure you will. I had no idea how far away I was from the medal in 2012 back then. There's loads more, but I did that. And I did 2.5 years later. Now, the lad reached...
But let's talk about leading up to that, because I know that, you went through something quite serious right before you got to the Olympics, and you questioned whether or not you were actually going to go, and then you found something deep inside you that motivated you to go. So why don't you walk us through that? I think it's important for our listeners to know.
So this is my story. This is what people have gone around the world telling this story to Houses of Parliament in the UK, to kids in primary schools. My story is this is pretty much, I mentioned at the very beginning, you asked me about my life last few weeks, and I said it's been a chaos roller coaster. This is it. This is my Olympic story. It just embodies my life, everything I do. I got back on a GB squad. I worked really, really hard. I got back on the squad. I got my first fight on the squad. I hadn't lost in years. I lost to Darren O'Neill, 11-1. 11 points to 1. He beat me up so badly. 11-1, and the Olympics were in 2 years' time. If I want to do anything at the Olympic Games, I had 2 years. So, as I mentioned earlier, I had no idea how tall the order was. Worked my ass off. At the end of that year, I boxed Vijender Singh, who was the then reigning world number 1. Vijender Singh, Indian, I boxed him at the Commonwealth Games. It's the 3rd most watched event in the world behind the Olympics and the Football World Cup. I boxed Vijender Singh. Vijender Singh was the LeBron James of India. They were his Commonwealth Games. The first Indian to ever win an Olympic medal. 400 million people watched mine and Vijender Singh's fight live on TV. That's how big of a deal he was. And I beat him. I beat the world number 1. So I proved myself. I went from getting beaten in May by Darren O'Neill, a good European number 2, to the world number 1 in 6 months.
Sorry to interrupt you. This was a year prior to the Olympics.
This was a year and a half. This was October 2010. I'm now the guy to beat. So I got brought on the squad on a 3-month trial. They extended it to a 6-month trial, which really pissed me off. So I knew I was better than a trialist. By the way, money wise, so you mentioned about money earlier. Pro boxing, that's the Tyson Furies, Mike Tyson. You earn a lot of money. In Olympic boxing, you don't earn money because you're doing it for the sport, for the love. I was on £411 a month, maybe $600 a month I was on, to train full-time, live away from home, 5 days a week to box. And I thought I was a millionaire because I was getting paid to do what I love. Now, 2011, this is an Olympic qualifying year. I had my whole life planned out. I was going to go to Europeans. I was going to win a medal. Now, 2011 was the first year they introduced seeding, like seeds. Boxing, it was all random. So you had no idea who you got. To be the best, you had to be the best. Whereas in 2012 was the first year they were doing seeded points. Now, the Europeans were the first seeded tournament they were going to have, and I was now the favourite. I go and box my first fight. I fought a guy called Jabba Kishnavili, a Georgian fella, real tough, real strong. I'm bashed him up. In round 2, he throws a right hand over my jab. My arm is trapped between his neck and his shoulder. He popped my shoulder out, the same shoulder that came out in 2008. I'm now in panic. This is round 1 of the Europeans. My shoulder's hanging out. I carry on fighting the whole fight. He beat me 14-13. I lost for the first time in ages, which wasn't, I'm obviously upset I lost, but it wasn't about losing, it was about my shoulder. But my shoulder's fucked. I've had a shoulder before. I was out for a whole year before. And what am I going to do? My life was in disarray. So I went back and I begged the coaches. I said, look, I can do this. Let me rehab my shoulder. I rehabbed it as much as I possibly could. My shoulder, if I didn't land, my shoulder would come out of the socket. I rehabbed as much as I possibly could, got my rotator cuff really as strong as I possibly could. Went to the World Championships. Now, the World Championships was the most heartbreaking time of my life up until this point. I had to get, the World Championships was the first Olympic qualifier. This was October 2011. The Olympics were in July 2012, so a nice 10-month before the Olympics. There was 2 qualifiers, the Worlds and the qualifier and tournament thereafter. To qualify, you had to get the guarantee qualification to get to the quarterfinals. The top 8 qualified. The top 10 actually qualified. My draw was done. Now I didn't get seeding points at the Europeans, so I'm now in the section of the draw where I've got to fight 2 seeds to get to the top 8. My first fight I fought a Korean. I beat him quite handily. He was a southpaw at 17-7. Then my next fight, I had to fight Artem Jabotarev, the Russian I mentioned earlier. So I sat and watched him in Ankara the first time when I watched him, and my jaw was on the floor watching someone dismantle somebody that beat me handily. I boxed Artem. I boxed out on my skin, damaged shoulder. Nobody really gave me a chance beating him. Jabbed, moved, boxed fantastically. At the end of round 2, because he couldn't get near me, because I was too good, too fast, and too elusive, he had me, the big and strong guy, had me in the clinch. He threw me to the floor. As I went down and put my arms down, my shoulder popped up.
Jeez.
And as I stood, I went, oh, the pain. As I stood up, I had to I stood up in stage, I had to stand up. My arm, I had to lift it up. The bell's gone. The final round with one arm. I'm just holding it. I couldn't, because he was so big and strong. I was about 4 points up. About 4 points up going into the last round. The backhand was keeping him away, right? But I couldn't throw it now because I couldn't throw it. So I'm jabbing, I'm hooking, I'm holding. I'm jabbing, hooking and holding. And the box to the middle. The announcer said, biggest fight of my life. And the winner of a score of 10 points to 9, 10-9, Ogogo in the red corner. I've gone to celebrate the biggest win of my life, right? Celebrate, my shoulder came out. I had to catch my shoulder from coming out. I couldn't even celebrate the biggest win of my life. I've now beaten the world number 2, the best boxer in the world. I've now got to fight the Brazilian. The Brazilian's another southpaw. Nowhere near as good as Artem, but a southpaw. So again, switch sides, so I got to throw lots of backhands. My arm was fucked. I boxed Brazilian. Everyone now thought I was going to win, so I beat the best person there. The tactics were, I had fast hands, beat him to the punch. I couldn't beat him to the punch. I couldn't throw the backhand. He beat me by 3 points, and I didn't qualify. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the top 10 qualified, which means if you get to the last 8, the quarterfinals, you qualify. So now they booked me a surgery for the day after I get back from Azerbaijan. It's in Azerbaijan. I've got to sit and watch this Brazilian fight this Japanese guy. And I'm thinking, if he qualifies, if he beats him, I qualify. So I'm sitting the whole hopes and dreams there watching him. Round 1, he's 4 points up. I'm thinking, I'm going to London. Now, don't get me wrong. I've learned, I hate my future being on somebody else's shoulders. I hate that. I hate not having that autonomy. But that's all I had. Round 2, he gets hit with a big shot. He gets hit with a huge punch, right? And I see his desire just fade. My hopes had gone twice in the same tournament. My hope crumbled twice. And I sat there, and the Olympics were so far. I couldn't believe how far. The Olympics now, they're in 10 months. This shoulder injury is way worse than the one before I had. I've carried on boxing on it. It's way more damage than I had when I had the scan. Went home, had the surgery. It's now end of October. The final qualifiers in April. I had 6 months to get back for that final qualifier. Number 2 is really good. But my reserve was a really good fighter. We've got to prove you can go and fight on back-to-back days to go to the qualifier. I turned a 12-month rehab into 4 months. The pain I experienced going through this rehab, I couldn't throw uppercuts because my shoulder was too weak. I didn't have the ability. There's nowhere near powerful as my shoulder should have been. And as you can imagine, this 4 months was brutal. I went to a tournament in Czech Republic.
Sorry to interrupt you. And all of this just to get that chance to be at the Olympics, correct?
There's a chance. Honestly, this is a chance. It's now or never. So I went to Czech Republic. I had 3 fights, knocked them all out. 2 southpaws as well. the first Englishman ever to win a gold medal in 32 years, and they sent me to the qualifier. I'll go to the qualifier. My first fight, I boxed a Macedonian, and I beat him up easy. My second fight, I fight Jab Kishnavili, the Georgian that put me through all this pain the previous 12 months.
Wow.
Before that fight, the coach said to me, listen, just box him. You're way better than him, but don't get drawn into a fight with him. Just box him. Of course, yeah. I'll box him. Just box him. Don't get drawn in. Okay, I'll box him. I'll box him. The bell went. I just saw red. We ran at each other. Whoa. He was hitting me. I was hitting him. Goodness me. It was like a bar brawl. I lost all my skill. Just I wanted to hurt this prick that fucking ruined my life. I came back after round one. I was 3 points down. Right? My coach Lee put in and slapped me. What the fuck you doing? Switch on, blah, blah. He said, now you got out your system. Now go and box him. There's still time to box him. He said, there's 3 rounds here. I come up round 2, and I genuinely was going to box him. He throws a massive right hook over my head. And he wobbles me. Like, he actually wobbles me. A big punch. Now I lose my rag again. Now it goes back into a fight. He's punching me, I was punching him. I came back after round 2, so there's 1 round left. I was 6 points down. So, some context behind the point system. The previous 4-year Olympic cycle, not one person at elite international boxing had ever overturned a 3-point deficit going into the last round. 4 points are unimaginable. 5 points were impossible. 6 points, I might as well just went back to London because the Olympics are gone for me. I had 180 seconds to turn my life around. I come out and this guy's fit, tough and strong, and I hit him so hard, and he's hitting me. He's hitting me. And like we mentioned earlier, I had him against the ropes. I was hitting, pum, bum, bum, hit me, bam, bam, bang, bang. It was a slugfest. I didn't knock him out. I gave everything. I worked so hard in that final 180 seconds. I gave myself exercise-induced asthma. So even now, 12 years on, when I go for a hard run or do a hard session on the row machine, I've got to take my city inhaler because that fight, I worked so hard, I fucked my own lungs up. But I come back to the corner, and obviously I won the last round, but how much bar, I don't know. I'm over the top rope. There's a great picture of me over the top rope, but I got nothing. Lee says to me, I said, did I do enough? He said, I don't know, mate, but I'm proud of your good effort. Went back to the middle, the winner, going through to the Olympic Games, Ogogo in the blue corner. I'd overturned a 6-point deficit never done before. I finally qualified. Now we had a week off before getting back into training. This is where the fun actually begins. We had a week off from training, spent time with my family, my friends, went back to Sheffield where the GB squad trained. Which I did our Tuesday morning run. And I get a phone call from my sister at 8:20 in the morning. But that's weird. I answered it. She went to me, panic. She went, get home and the mum's about to die. My whole life, like in a movie, things just kind of just go silent. Mum's about to die. Now, she suffered a brain aneurysm that morning, like that. She's in hospital. I jumped in my car, flew back. It was the worst 4-hour journey in my life. I walked in hospital, walked in, and my mum's lying there in the machine. And the machine's keeping her alive. And I walked, my sisters and my nan threw their arms over me. Like I was going to save the day. And I felt so helpless. And, we never seen my mum, the strongest person I know, lying there, like, basically dead on a machine, keeping her alive. And I walked in, and I talked to a doctor, and he took me into a little room. And he said to me, he explained what happened. He said to me, look, we're going to turn off life support machine. And I said to him, thank you, sir. I said, can you please send it to Addenbrooke's? He said to me, no, you didn't hear me. He said, no, we've called up. There's no beds available. Anyway, even if we did, they'd do the same thing as us. They'd turn off the life support machine. I said, sir, can you please just send it to Addenbrooke's? I asked him 3 times politely. The 4th time, I don't know what I said. I don't know what I did. But he left the room. I remember I was hot. He comes back. Could have been a minute. Could have been 20. I have no idea. And he came back to me and said, we've spoken to Addenbrooke's. There's a bed available. So we're now going to send her. But please don't get your hopes up. There's nothing can be done. I said, thank you, sir. We get there. They operate on her brain straight away. And they put her in a coma. And she's in a bad way. And none of us thought she was going to survive. Like, she's in a really, really, really bad way. The size of the bleed in the back of her brain was disastrous. It was really, really bad. I sat by her side for four weeks. Didn't do a thing. Didn't throw a press up. Didn't throw a punch. Didn't go for a run. I'd lost weight, sick with work, wasn't eating. I got a local B&B. I sat over there, and my family said to me, listen, you've got a box at the Olympic Games. I said, how can I fight the Olympic Games? They said, look, when mum gets better, she'll feel awful knowing that you pulled out because of her. None of us thought she'd get better. None of us thought we'd get better. And I was like, I had a choice to make. Do I? But they were true. Had I not done Olympics because of her, that would have killed her. So I went to Sheffield. We had 1 week of training left. We had one sparring session left. And my phone's in my pocket all the time. And if they called, I'm answering. So I'm sparring. I'm throwing the first punch I've ever thrown since in the last 5 weeks in a sparring session. I threw a slow jab. And Fred Evans, who's a really good fighter, slips out, throws a body shot, and he breaks my rib. And I'm now, and I guess we had a 4-round sparring session. The last spar Tuesday. My fight was on the following Friday. A last sparring session, and I get through the spar. I don't know how I get through the spar, and I sit on the ring apron, and I used to wear a lot of grease on my face to reduce the risk of cuts. And the grease is trying to masquerade my tears, but it's obviously I'm crying my eyes out. And I'm sitting there, and Robin McCracken, the performance director, comes over to me, and he says to me, he tries to give me this Winston Churchill-esque speech, trying to kind of give me a G up. And he says to me, look, he said, as a man, we've got to do things sometimes. He went, he said, he was a pro coach as well. He said his pro boxer Carl Froch became world champion. And he said when Froch became world champion on the morning, his exact words were, my mum collapsed. And I had a choice to make. Do I take Carl to the world title to become world champion, which he did, or do I go and see my mum in hospital? So I took Carl Carl became world champion, and look, life is great now. Now, what he didn't know that I knew, his mum had a brain aneurysm that day, and she died. And I knew that because I was a student of the game. I knew everything. So all I'm hearing now is, your mum died of an aneurysm. My mum's going to die of an aneurysm. Fuck, my mum's going to die. Never going to see her again. And I sat there. My shoulder's still dislocated. I got tears in both of my Achilles tendons. They'd both rupture when I turned pro. Out for 2 years. I had a broken rib. Thought, my mum's going to die. I'm never going to see her again. That's my Olympics. That's my build-up. I went to London. Really hard draw. Wasn't a seed. I was the first boxer to box in London. I didn't go to the opening ceremony on the Friday because I was boxing lunchtime on a Saturday. I boxed a Dominican. My next fight, I fought a Ukrainian. Nobody gave me a chance beating Kryotov, even with a fit and healthy body. Nobody gave me a chance. And when these tournaments are done, you sit in a team meeting. The team manager said to me, you're boxing today against Dominican. Right. And he did this. He went, and if you beat him, you got the Ukrainian like that. And I thought, you don't fucking believe in me. That you didn't take a breath. You didn't believe. I said, you know what? Watch this. I boxed this Dominican, and as I mentioned, nobody thought I was going to beat Ukrainian. I thought my even team manager didn't think I was going to beat him. I thought, you watch, and I gave it everything, and I beat Kryotov in the most traumatic circumstance ever. I've always believed in myself, and I always believe if you believe in yourself, there's nothing you can't do. Back then, it was a point system, as I mentioned before. If you land a punch, you score a point. If they land a punch, they score a point. The final score between our fight was 18 apiece, 18-18. Goes to a countback. Now, a countback, and that's not common, but it happens sometimes. A countback is when, basically, for you to score a point, 3 of the 5 judges have to press the button within 1 second of each other. Point to register. Now, a countback is they ignore when it's a dead heat. It goes. They ignore the countbacks. They ignore the 1 second rule, and they tally up all the punches. Now, the 1 second rule is quite important because if you're sitting at a different angle, you might see the head fly back, but too late, right?
It's honestly like VAR on for football. Every angle shows a completely different story.
Exactly. But it's perfect, exactly what it is. So the countback, and I've been boxing for a long time, traveled the world over and over, I've never seen this before, ever. The countback score was 52-52. It was a countback, never been done before. To the point where there was no regulation what happens in double countback. Never been done before. The referee asked all 5 judges who they thought won. All 5 judges said me, and I qualified. It's just 5 minutes, the longest 5 minutes of my life. I dropped to the floor, dropped to my knees, and I beat him. I've done it. My next fight, I fought a European champion, a German, big, strong, fit fighter, boxing. boxed him, beat him comfortably. I just did everything I could just to waste time, and I beat him. Now, my semi-final, I was fighting the same Brazilian that beat me at the Worlds like 8 months before.
The one that let you down.
The one that let me down. This one.
Essentially, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And long and short of it, he beat me. He hit me. I never seen the fight back. He hit me in, I think it was round 1 or round 2. He hit me with a straight, in round 1 or 2, he hit me with a backhand down the pipe, hit me on the chin, and I went down. He couldn't punch me near the hard Ukrainian. That just shows that by the time I got to semi-final, I was just fucked. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, to nothing, no resolve left. And he beat me, and I was gutted because the Dominican, Ukrainian, and German that I'd beaten in the Olympics had all beaten him that Olympic year. That Olympic had all beaten him. And it took me a while to get around this, but yeah, I had nothing left. And in my Olympics, I was sneaking out of London, to get to my car, to drive my mum in hospital, to hold her hand, to stroke her hair, and drive back and creep back into the Olympic Village, back into my bed before the coaches woke up. I did that 3 times in the Olympic Games. It should have been the best time of my life. It was the worst time of my life. It was horrible, miserable, awful. It took me a long time to get over that, of not winning. And the guy that won the gold medal, the Japanese guy that the Ukrainian smashed to bits in the Worlds 8 months before, he won the gold medal. And I beat the Ukrainian. And the Ukrainian was way better than the Japanese guy. And listen, if things happened differently, I was bitter because I should have won a gold medal. I was good enough to. I was more than good enough to. I think I showed that. I think I deserved it, what I went through. But listen, life doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out. Not for you anyway. It was somebody else's fairy tale, wasn't mine. But it took me a long time to be even proud of myself. But I'm very proud of what I did and what was thrust upon me over those Olympics.
Yeah. But I think you should be proud of yourself for you to be able to compete at that level, with everything that you're going through, and yet to get a medal, that's a huge achievement. You know
Thank you.
I was going to ask you also, because Sam and I, especially as basketball players, I'm sure, Sam, you've shared this, where like you lose in a semifinal and then you have to still go off and play in a 3rd, 4th place game, and it's like so difficult to find motivation. How did you tap in like one level further given that you'd lost a semifinal that you thought you had to win?
So it's different in boxing. So in boxing, they award 2 bronzes to both losing semi-finalists, so you don't do a box off. I saw the coach in Paris. He said to me, whenever I see him, he says the same thing. My medal was the hardest fought Olympic medal ever won by a British athlete. That's not boxing. That's not colour medal. What I went through in the build-up and what I went through in competition. Most sports happen over 1 day. Some over 2 days. Heptathlon 2 days. Decathlon 3 days. 2 days, sorry. My first fight was the first fight. My final was the last day. My semi-final was the day before the last day. I was in competition the whole time, training.
Anthony, quick question for you. Not too many people get to medal. What was the first thing you did with the medal?
I had contempt for the medal. I was gutted. It wasn't the gold. I didn't know where it was for the longest time. I went to Paris this summer, as I've said numerous times now, and I had no idea where my medal was. My ex-wife's house. I had to go and get it before going to Paris. It was hard. The box is all tatty. It's all scruffy. It's very much, the box is indicative of. I'll send a picture to everybody of the box. Indicative of me. It's tatty. It's beaten up. It's damaged, but within it there's beauty. Do you know what I mean? Like it's quite significant. It's hard because on one hand it's amazing and beautiful being a medalist. And I went to Paris and I had a 10-man police escort pick me up from Charles de Gaulle station and take me to Paris. It was amazing. On the other hand, I feel like I want to tell people, don't get me wrong, the medals are amazing, but like it should have been a gold. And not everyone's got an hour to listen to my story. So it's just like I've got to get to. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting to a place where like I'm okay with saying I want an Olympic medal, without the time saying, oh yeah, but mum was ill, should have been a gold, One of those ones. It's very much a work in progress.
No, but I think, by the way, the adversity is I don't want to say the best part, because obviously going through something like that with your mother is horrible, but I think it's the most relatable in a sense of it helps people understand that there are ways to channel what you perceive as bad things into very positive outcomes. And so to be able to not only go through the physical demands that you went through in that year and also now the emotional ones with your mother and your sisters are not really knowing what was going to happen, I think it's inspirational. And I don't think you should ever feel the need to only say you know, I won an Olympic medal. You can talk about the adversity like with pride, Anthony. If anything, it's very refreshing how candid you are about all of this. You know, obviously I've spoken to you offline, so I'm gauging the questions in a way that allows me to talk about it. But the first time you and I met, I didn't know any of this, and you still felt comfortable enough to speak to me. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to us on YouTube and all podcasting apps.
And make sure you follow us on all the social media apps. Another one in the books, baby. Yeah.
Let's go.